The official recording in progress message.
All right. Well, thanks for coming today. And also for those of you who are watching online, the recording. Today, I'd like to talk about my co-authored forthcoming book and the instructional design course here at Boise State University. We call it OPWL 537. OPWL stands for Organizational Performance and Workplace Learning, and ID is an abbreviation for Instructional Design. All right. So first, I'll introduce myself. I've worked in many different organizational types. These include for-profit rather, businesses, multinational organizations, NGOs, non-governmental organizations, startups, not-for-profits, the Department of Defense, and universities. I've also served a variety of roles, including lead ID, instructor, ID, facilitator, trainer, manager, department director. I've never worked as a technical writer. I've never worked as a graphical designer, as you probably already know from looking at the slide. I've never worked as an HRD professional either, but I have collaborated with those folks, among many, many others, on instructional design projects. The icons you see represent some of the organizations for which I've worked. All right, so if you would take a moment to introduce yourself by sharing your name, location, years of experience working on ID projects. It's okay if you don't have any. And optionally, one burning question. And again, it's okay if you don't have any. And you can just unmute yourself.
Yeah, so since I'm the only live customer today here, I can just jump right in. So my name is Ben Clark. I am in Portland, Oregon. I have probably about 7 years of ID experience, but I've never served in a strictly like ID role. My background is mostly in organizational development. I have worked in an external sort of organizational strategy and organizational development role for the past couple of years. Before that, I was in sort of HR project management, and the Venn diagram of that role was, it had a lot of overlap with learning and development at my previous organization. So
Yeah.
I've done a lot of instructional design work, but I've never held the title. So yeah, interested to hear what you guys have to say. Oh, and one burning question. Let's see. I didn't really have anything prepared.
It's okay if you don't have one. Yeah.
Yeah. I won't embarrass myself for the
That's
sake of the
okay.
recording, but yeah.
And if you have questions as they arise, please feel free to ask them.
Okay, great.
And
Thank you.
we'll have time at the end too if you
Awesome.
decide you have another question. Yeah. So we have a lot of students that fit your profile, mid-career, have some experience, maybe the title, maybe not. But they're looking for oftentimes like just some formalized support and career development opportunities, networking opportunities. So thanks for sharing that. All right, so our agenda today will go over some of the key concepts in my new co-authored book and how I teach the course. All right, so on this screen you see two images. The one on the left is our new prototype book cover. Again, not a graphic designer. That'll look different. This cover will change before it's on the market, and our publisher will help us select a more polished and professional design. Dr. Giacumo, Dr. Stepich, and I wrote this book together last year and just delivered it for peer review to the publisher at the end of June. We plan to deliver the finished, finalized version in mid-November, and the publisher said the book should be available on the market after May 2024. The image on the right shows the LEAPS ID model, which we will use to frame the ID course and the ID projects we do in the course with live clients and on virtual ID teams. The model is built on principles found in ADDIE, design thinking, project management, performance improvement, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. So, why the LEAPS model? There's already ID models out there. Well, none of them really incorporate a systems view that's highly contextualized, as well as honoring diversity and building a sense of belonging through inclusion and fairness. And we know that that's good for organizations as well as it's good for society. In his organizational elements model, Roger Kaufman encouraged us to focus on outcomes that benefit external clients as well as society. And according to Burson, who writes prolifically in the HRD zone, the business case for diversity and inclusion is proven. Promoting organizational cultures of belonging and equity is the challenge of the decade. And he says upskilling emerging talent will challenge HRD leaders. And so that's a why for us. So right here, you'll see that we center organizational justice theory as a major underpinning theory for the LEAPS ID model, and this is pretty unique. It's a theory from industrial organizational psychology, and no one's really brought it in yet into the instructional design area. We're kind of the first, so we're breaking ground here. The theory is often depicted in a model with 3 components that include procedural justice, distributive justice, and interactional justice. And this theory was conceived of during the civil rights movement and was a way to measure the level of perceived fairness across organizational systems by people at all levels of the organization. So, for example, it wouldn't be considered a just organization just because people on the top said it was. You would have to get buy-in from everyone. In our book, we draw upon this theory to underpin design processes and design decisions so that learners are included fairly, resources are fairly allocated, processes are fair, and stakeholders feel respected and maintain their dignity. The purpose is to support a sense of belonging for everyone, including non-dominant groups of stakeholders. We use inclusive design practices to ensure culturally relevant and equitable designs that maintain dignity and respect stakeholders' needs. We do this through a collaborative, iterative project approach that includes diverse stakeholders with diverse identities. So the Venn diagram on the left of the screen represents the goal state of the inclusive design principles. That's effective, engaging, and equitable learning experiences. We call them E3+. And our performance-based learning and development focus, that's the second guiding principle on the right, focuses on authentic real-world decisions that learners need to make well in job settings. And the table on the right shows the different types of decisions that adults take on in organizations and professional contexts. So everything in our book is based on my and my co-authors' combined experience of doing instructional design in organizations to support learning and development, as well as for professional education. So it's also based on our experience supporting instructional designers working on live client projects in our course. And as I said before, these students range in instructional design experience from none through mid-career managers. Many of us are used to working with stakeholders that appear in the graphic on the left. Perhaps you can even think of others who are missing from this picture. They might include suppliers, internal customers, external customers, and so on. And we advocate for the full participation whenever possible. However, full participation is an abstract concept and one that's pretty difficult to put into practice at times. It can be made more tangible by distinguishing the following 4 levels of participation by design team members. Level 1 consultation is where stakeholders are asked for opinions, ideas, or concerns, but where there is no formal involvement via focus group or surveys or anything like that. Level 2 is where stakeholders' involvement take part in defined activities such as adding to an agenda or the design of instructional methods or activities. Level 3 is participation. Stakeholders take on an active role with more input on decision making. But the agenda is largely defined and directed by the instructional designers. And then co-production, when equal collaboration between IDs and other stakeholders with joint decision making happens that's related to goals, methods, and outcomes. And whenever possible, of course, we strive for and advocate for co-production or co-design. Although we know that's not always possible. And so we also provide guidance on like how to scale, when to scale, what to think about scaling. And we do that throughout the course in different ways. So here's an example of how we include a scalable, inclusive instructional design model in the book as well. You know, there's a framework here. The first step is just figuring out how to be culturally responsive and equitable in any given context, organizational context. We call that, you know, the "I belong here" step, right? And so we see that as required no matter what kind of intervention you're going to deliver, whether it's introductory training or some sort of extensive training to memory. And so the other four components become optional depending on the situation and what's required to support the learners. And so that might include learner preparation, set me up, demonstration, show me, application, guided practice, and mastery assessment, let me, and transfer support, watch me do it somewhere else, right? And in the book, we also talk about how to scale ID project focuses and think about different focuses. Most people know that learning and development work covers training. However, the playground for instructional designers is actually much larger. So we talk about the different intervention types that you can work on, ranging from instructional to non-instructional, informal through formal learning, and we teach you how to make decisions on which interventions to use and when. And the term intervention refers to anything we provide to learners that help support an observable change in their behaviors, which we define as learning. Um, so we also teach you about how to think about using those many different intervention types in combination to build a learning ecosystem strategy for your organization. So we take it from, you know, small, maybe micro learning, all the way up through all of the learning that you're going to deliver in your organization or program. So that's scalable too. And learning ecosystems include different methods of achieving individuals' learning and development or performance goals. And you see some of those things on this slide here. We also dive into real world practice and effective strategies in the book because there's some common challenges that instructional designers face no matter what situation they're in or they can face. It's not required to face them, but they often face them. Those might be unreasonable client expectations, contradictory organizational truths, and then how do you move away from traditional ID approaches where, you know, we kind of told everybody how to solve their problems towards a more of a DEI focused process and collaborative consulting model. And so to support these challenges, we provide effective strategies and solutions. And those we teach people how to increase their organizational intelligence, how to build credibility and trust, and how to keep clients happy. Again, given our combined 30 to 40 years of experience doing consulting, both internally as instructional designers that are employed by organizations, as well as externally as instructional design consultants. All right, so if we move on specifically to the OPWL 537 instructional design course, we'll go over the course sequence and we'll talk about how it goes a little bit at a very high level. So the work sequence, here you'll see the general structure of the course and the opportunities that you'll encounter during the semester. It's a 15-week semester at this moment. I can't tell you how valuable the simple act of relationship building is inside of the course, both with me as the instructor, along with your colleagues that are enrolled in the course and enrolled in the OPWL program. It helps you invest in your network, and my experience from going to grad school and building these networks inside of graduate coursework is that you know, I have these people to fall back on and rely on for the rest of my career. It's pretty special. And all of my jobs, honestly, have come from my network connections with individuals that I invested in. And I invested in them by nurturing healthy relationships, giving my best, always trying to put my best foot forward. And here you'll see also the kind of the topics that we go through each week of the course. And I feel like there's potential yields for that include something for everyone, no matter what stage you are in your career, whether you're just going to be looking for your first ID job, or you've just landed your first ID job, or maybe you've been doing ID work and you want to move into an ID role, or maybe you're already an ID manager, but you've never had the formalized training and background, and so now you're coming in here and you're looking for new ways to support your team doing work. So these opportunities for your adventures will include new ideas and ways of working, potential stretch assignments. So if you've never done ID work before, that'll be your stretch assignment. If you've never worked on a virtual team, that'll be a stretch assignment. If you've done those things, but you've never really mentored, coached, or led an instructional design team, you can take on that kind of a role. You'll create deliverables that you can use in an open online web-based portfolio, and you'll gather experiences doing real ID work that you can use in interviews, ID tasks and deliverables, project management, working virtually. And then if you want to, you can even talk about leading teams through specific activities or maybe the whole project. That's obviously negotiable depending on what other people in your team want to take on and want to stretch and grow into as well. And sometimes those things can be shared and exchanged throughout the semester so everyone gets a chance. And then, of course, you have the opportunity to form new network relationships. So we do recorded Zoom meetings, 4 of them, so that if you can't make it to a live session, you can watch at home online. The meetings include a kickoff meeting at the start of the semester and 3 more meetings at key points to go over key concepts, think about where we've been, prepare for where we're going next. And also we've been using the meetings to talk about how to use the so-called artificial intelligence, AI, to support different ID deliverables. So here you'll see some of my MARC lab members. MARC stands for Marginalized and Cross-Cultural Research and Development Group. This is from the spring of 2021, and of course that's from a Zoom meeting. I don't take photos of the course meetings, and everyone here gave me permission to share the photo with you. I like to practice what I preach. So this is a performance-based course. And that means it is based on coaching and feedback and trying and doing. I, as the instructor, it's hard for me to help too much. I mean, I wrote the book, so you'll read the book. That's perhaps the support. But individually, I can't do too much until I see your work. So I ask people to create drafts and go through iterations, an iterative ID process, because that's what you'll experience anyways in an instructional design role. I give feedback. I expect people to respond to it. Other people will give you feedback in the course. You'll give feedback to other people. You can accept the feedback. You can ask questions to clarify it, or you can even push back. It's all good as long as you don't ignore it. Unlike IDs in the OPWL workplace, you'll be working alone sometimes to complete deliverables, but you'll also be working with a team sometimes to complete deliverables. Oftentimes there are multiple assignments going on at once, which is very common and pretty much all of my experience working as an instructional designer. I carried multiple projects and took on multiple tasks at any one time and had to flip between them according to whatever was needed in that moment. And the teams work, both cooperatively and collaboratively. So you'll probably need approximately 12 hours each week on average to complete the course. It's a 4-credit course spread over 15 weeks. Some weeks, of course, might put in a few more hours, and other weeks a few less. I think that's a positive, because then if you have to travel for work or have some sort of family obligations, we can do a little flex there. I do practice what I preach on inclusion and equity, and that is why my approach is so flexible. As long as we can meet the course learning outcomes and I can deliver your final course grade on time to the university, I do invite you to negotiate for alternative deadlines, readings, assignments, whatever it is that you feel you need or would be best suited to your specific situation and context, because I want you to get the value you deserve, and I want your learning experience to tightly align with your professional development and career development goals. So I don't want you to do work just because I asked you to. I want you to do work because it's valuable. You'll have a lot of opportunities to take advantage of risk-free practice in discussion activities, revise, reflect, review, repost, based on feedback from everyone that you receive in the course. You'll be able to build a larger network that, again, will come in handy as you move through your program as well as your career. And I also make myself very available to help upon request. I help individuals, I help teams. We meet either on Zoom or the phone or WhatsApp, or however it is that is best for us to connect. So my biggest advice is, if you or your team feel like you're struggling, don't wait to reach out, because we can always, always, always negotiate a path forward. I've been teaching the course for many years now, with many, many groups of students and many, many different clients, and it always works out. And it's just plain easier to negotiate paths forward whenever you run into a challenge sooner rather than later. So the artificial intelligence that we go over to support ID work, we talk about how it can be used and what it can be used to do. And so on this slide, you'll see some different types of ID work that the so-called AI can support, and we talk about that in class. And here is an example of an AI-enabled persona building process. So, sometimes I give examples of prompts, sometimes I ask learners to come up with examples of prompts. I've been using AI quite a bit, and for me, I've learned that I get better and better outputs if I keep continuing to give prompts to the generative AI. So maybe there'll be like a series of prompts that I give. I'll give it a prompt, it'll get me back some stuff, and I'll say, okay, based on what you give me back, change this, that, and the next thing, and do this, and then it'll give me another output. It'll feed me another output. I'll look at that. I'll tell it what to refine. It'll refine it, and you can it can help you with brainstorm, but you can't use raw output. You have to analyze, even after you give it a couple of prompts, you have to analyze what it's giving you against what you've done already for your project work. You're going to have to make updates. It'll probably miss information. Sometimes it puts inappropriate information in there. And other times it puts incorrect information in there. So it's important that you know the foundations, and you know what to do and how to do it yourself. Just like when kids go to elementary school, they learn about numbers and how to add them, even though we all have calculators, right? Same idea. And then once you have kind of adjusted the output so that it looks as good as you can make it, of course, you want to take it to your stakeholders and get their input, and then you'll have to revise again. But it does make things go a lot faster in work, as far as my experience has been so far using it. All right, that's all I have. Time for questions. Thoughts, feedback?
Well, it looks like since I'm the only game in town, you're gonna have to field them from me. So, great presentation. And again, I'm very new to the OPWL program, so I haven't had any classes with you yet, Professor, but that was a fantastic presentation. Quick, unsolicited pitch for me. The OPWL program has been absolutely phenomenal. Everything that you described it as, especially like the networking aspect of it, has been amazing. And that's coming from somebody who is kind of networking averse, we'll say. So it has absolutely broadened my horizon so far. And yeah, you guys do a great job. So with that out of the way, A couple quick
Thank you.
questions. Yeah, of course. A couple quick questions that I had. One that kind of gets back to your model. Again, having not read your book and
Sure.
not taking your classes, maybe this is a question that's more geared towards, you know, when I'm in your class more specifically. But I do a lot of organizational strategy work, like I mentioned at the top, and a lot of that kind of filters through like specific DEI frameworks and how organizations apply kind of DEI strategies to you know, their organizational ecosystem. And I was curious as to whether or not your model kind of relies upon there being a pre-existing DEI model within an organization, or is that just more of a nice to have that gives you some more momentum when you're building that learning ecosystem?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. So no, to answer that, I don't presuppose that an organization has like a framework in it or anything that has to do with a DEI strategy. I am aware of what DEI strategy is used for in organizations. I've seen a couple of presentations by like GP Strategies and some of these other larger consulting agencies. My friends over at the food bank, they had a consulting agency come in and help them create one. Excuse me. So where we come in is at a different level. So that's the strategic level of the organization. So your executives, sorry, me and my team, your executives, your leaders of the organization at the higher levels of the organization are going to be working on those type of strategy documents. Um, and what almost all of these consultants will tell you is that it's really hard to get from that high level strategy down into the decisions that are done, you know, by people that are actually taking care of the clients, taking care of the customers, like doing the frontline work almost, you know, or even the mid level work. So where our book comes in is we're giving you actual strategies to implement and processes to implement and design to do the work at that applied level, tactical level. Um, that's where we are at. So if I can show you that slide with the model on it, let's see, share screen. I'm going to go back there again.
Absolutely. And there's definitely something to be said for, you know, applying interventions at that sort of process level. You can get that nice kind of diffusion of effects that can go up and down too. So that is super helpful.
Right. Yeah. So we do okay, so if you look at the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see the LEAPS ID learning performance support model that we were working on. And you'll see that the outside circle is kind of like all the society, right? Societal systems, so government, economy, cultures, you know, whatever is out there that's influencing that organization. But then that second layer here, we've titled that as inclusive design in organization. So there, that circle represents your organizational context, which is situated in the larger world context, right? And societal context. So we don't claim that our processes are going to make the organization inclusive, but what we do say is that if the players coming to the table inside of that project management circle to do those to carry out those tasks and processes that you see, those instructional design tasks, having a good understanding of their own self awareness, right, and what they bring to the table and who they are, and they are motivated to empathize with others, and you include diverse voices as part of your work and your process, you can put out more inclusive, equitable, and friendly and welcoming materials than you would have if you took more of the old traditional approach where I know all about instructional design. I'm going to come in, I'm going to listen to like the manager, what the learners, potential learners are doing and not doing, and why they think that's happening. You know, that it's a lack of knowledge and skills, because of course we can't change incentives with training, right? Incentive structures or resource structures. But for lacks of knowledge and skill, and sometimes feedback loops at the organizational level, right, we can solve all the problems. So we're saying, probably shouldn't believe that you as an individual can go in there and solve all the problems. Probably much better if you get input from a lot of people along your path, and if you can empathize with them and you're self-aware and you're motivated to deliver a solution that's culturally relevant, inclusive, and equitable, that we have a way that you can do that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's an awesome answer. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. So we're not going to solve all the world's problems, but we will for those who
Yeah.
want to learn about kind of a new way of doing things. Um, we've been adopting slowly over time. We see that this will get you closer to where you want to go. For example, you know, I was just reading about someone who had written a vignette in a book chapter, and this child who was low vision, to the point where the child needed to put his nose like a quarter inch away from the textbook in order to read the textbook, right? And the teacher took it upon themselves, a person in a position of power, to give the student a large type textbook. Now, that means that for the one textbook that everyone else had in the course, in the classroom, they had 10 because of the font size, right? And of course, the student didn't need to put the nose next to the book, but the student now had to carry around 10 textbooks. They were never able to get on the right page. They were never able to like figure out what they were supposed to read. So the accessible solution didn't take that learner's voice into consideration, right? It wasn't and so we're saying you need to involve the people who will actually be participating in interventions, because they have valuable perspective and input that will actually help you make better, more effective interventions. And it will slow your timeline down a little bit. So there's a tension between efficiency and inclusion, right? And so then the question becomes, well, how do you make those decisions? And you know, there's experience will help. And it'll change depending on your context. And so what do you look for and how do you do that kind of a thing? Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, it does. And it's fascinating. It ties into so many other aspects of kind of organizational behavior and how organizations prioritize and think about, you know, themselves and, you know, identify. And so, yeah, that is super interesting. I won't pull you any deeper down any particular rabbit holes here, but that was a phenomenal answer.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I guess to kind of riff off of that last example, do you have like case studies in this book of this model kind of
Did
in
they pay
action?
you to come here
I
and
know,
ask
right?
these questions?
I tried to give the disclaimer that this is all unsolicited. So, but I mean, like,
Yeah.
I have to assume, like,
Yes,
that most
there are
people
case
watching this,
studies.
okay, great, yeah, I have to assume that most people are in positions kind of like mine, where, like, you know, I am not an ID expert, and
Uh-huh.
I need to see these things kind of put into action and kind of methodically applied to real world situations so that I can kind of, you know, not just make meaning, but see how it's all applied in real life and in the real world. So it's nice to know that that you have that, and that now you're going to be moving some units here.
Right. Yeah. So there is a case for every single chapter at the end of the chapter, and there are discussion questions that align with the case as well as the chapter and then what you've read previously in the book. And the first case, they're all real cases, but I've changed some of the details, including the names of the organizations to protect identities, right? And
Oh,
so it starts right from chapter 1. Here's the situation. What do you do?
hey, that's great. That's great. That's super applicable. I love it.
Yeah. Thank you, though. Great
Yeah,
questions.
yeah, of course, of course.
Lisa,
Yeah, so we really tried to write the book to be also an instructional material. Again, practice what we preach, right? It's not instructional if you can't interact with it. So if it's
Mhm.
just text and information providing, then it's information providing. But instruction happens when there's a conversation, right? Or there's some sort of interaction or exchange. So the book starts with an introduction. It starts with describing what you should be able to do by the end of reading the book, and then it goes into the content, and then at the end of each chapter, there's that case study and some
Awesome.
discussion questions, and then
Thanks.
a list of references as well.
Nice, nice. Yeah,
That's
it sounds
probably
like a
more than you
format
wanted to
that,
hear.
yeah, no, well, I mean, that certainly doesn't hurt. Yeah, no, that's definitely a format that most folks in this general line of work would probably appreciate. So, all right, great.
Lisa, I'd love to ask for some of our prospective students that might be program shopping right now about your 537 class. We have people who they're aware of the content they want, and this is something that comes up in a lot of our prospective student meetings. But I'm wondering for that 537 class, we have so many questions about, I know it's housed in Canvas, but what does it look like for the work that I'm submitting in Canvas, or what am I actually, doing while I'm in Canvas? And I was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit for your classes.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of I talk a lot about networking, right? And the value of networking.
Mhm.
And part of networking is making yourself vulnerable, right? To meet people, talk to them, ask them questions, and listen to what information they give you, right? That's what I mean by making yourself vulnerable. And so most of our work in the course that you would create, the deliverables, you're either creating yourself or inside of a team. They're posted in the discussion board. So the discussions aren't necessarily always super theoretical. They can be, but they are theoretical as it is applied in practice.
Mhm.
So you'll for most of them, not all of them, like I think they're the first discussion, you watch a video, that's a prominent instructional designer in corporate America, available on YouTube, talking about what do instructional designers do, right? And then you respond to the video. But the rest of the discussions are more like, all right, you've read the book. Here's either a simulated real world project case, like over video. We've videotaped some interviews with client between an instructional designer and a client. So you get to watch what other people are doing in their work. And then we say, all right, so you've read the book, you've watched the simulated interaction. Take that information that you have now, the theory and the applied setting, and create a deliverable. So for example, a task analysis is a deliverable. And so the learners will, create a task analysis and then they'll share that in the discussion. And then they'll comment and they'll respond to each other's task analysis, right? So it's not like, oh, I read this and I really liked what they said because of these things, right? It's more real world focused, performance focused, ID deliverable focused. And so we start out with a simulated project, instructional design project, for which they create deliverables that we go over and learn about inside the textbook. So wrote the textbook, you read the textbook, you you engage with the simulation, the simulated project, and then you create your deliverables, you post them, everybody talks about them, we get feedback on them, and then you do your live client work. So it's like a scaffold, right? So you read about it, you practice it in a very safe, controlled setting without a lot of people going in on in there, and then you get into the real world messy space once you have been able to go through it once on your own. Does that make sense?
That's great. And Lisa, is your research and development lab, is it open to students whether they're pursuing the Master of Science degree or one of the graduate certificate options?
Yes.
Woohoo!
Yes.
Plug for
Yeah,
the research and development labs.
yeah, and so some people they feel like they want more experience and they come into the lab and to do another ID project. Sometimes there are instructional design projects that don't fit into our course because they take too much time. So for example, creating a video. Not everybody has video skills. Not everybody has video development software. But some people want that practice. And so we've partnered with different clients. And then inside the lab, they'll get on a team and they've already been through the course, the instructional design course. And this one example I'm thinking of, there was somebody who had been through the instructional design course, somebody they'd also been through our project management course. So that person was like the client main leader, the client liaison, and the project leader. And then one person was enrolled in the instructional design course, and one person was enrolled in our e-learning, scenario-based e-learning design and development course. And the person that was in the instructional design course also had a background in videography, like professional videography. So we have now this trio who got together and produce this instructional video for our client. The client was using an instructional video they found on YouTube that was 45 minutes long and for a different organization. So they would have to show this video for 45 minutes to everyone in a room. Then they would have to stand there and correct all the things that the video said that was wrong for their organization.
No.
and you know what I mean, before the training was over. So now you're an hour in, and inside my lab, this team got together and they worked with the client and they created a 10-minute video that was specifically on the client's organization. And so a ton of money was saved with that, right? And it was a better video because it was from my students. It really was better though. And yeah, so that's one example of a lab project that you can engage in as a student in the OPWL program. Other times students want to see if they want to go for a PhD someday. So we do research projects for those students. We've also done conference presentations. Sometimes students come in and they want to get some experience proposing a conference session, going through the peer review process, getting feedback, and then developing the slides, and then eventually delivering it. And they get that experience. And then we get to go meet up at a live conference, and that's really fun.
Woohoo.
Yeah.
It's definitely, I think we have people that get worried, I don't have the foundational skills, or this is something new, or even K through 12 teachers that are transitioning saying, I know this is the realm I want to be in, but I don't have the skill sets yet. And we just always want to encourage people, and especially if you're watching the recording, this provides the foundational knowledge. We don't leave you hanging in the program. We build those skill sets from the ground up. So don't ever be nervous about not having the background of it.
Right. So just to show you on the Zoom slide, Lens was a math teacher, K-12. Justin was an engineer in his prior life. So I don't think he even had Psych 101 in his undergrad. Madeline had experience using Articulate and doing some instructional design. Kendra had never done instructional design before. Audrey, I think she may have done a little bit of instructional design. Shveta had done a lot of e-learning in her past life, and Chantel did HRD. She was an HRD professional, but never had done instructional design. So you see that just in my lab alone, there are people with all sorts of different backgrounds and prior experiences, ranging from 0 to a good chunk. And they're all successful, and we all had a great time together. And I don't see teachers or anyone with 0 background. They all come out of the course successfully and with a great experience and a lot of learning. And I'm connected with all these guys on LinkedIn, and I still see them and talk to them, and they're all graduated now, so it's a little sad. So I put them in the photo here so I could smile and remember them.
And yeah, like again, another unsolicited kind of opinion about the program itself. Like, I came into this program again super recently. I have a prior master's in a more organizational development focus sort of practice area. I wish so badly that I had gone through this program first. Again, I'm not getting paid to say this, but like the focus on practical application of everything that is kind of involved in organizational performance and workplace learning. Obviously, instructional design is a huge part of that, which we've covered here, but even more broadly, like the practical application of so many different kinds of means of measuring organizational performance and applying interventions. It would have improved my early career so much had I done this first, had I gone this route instead of my other masters that I did a few years back. Just the ability to move into the workplace and be proficient in a lot of the stuff that you're talking about here, Lisa. I mean, like, it would have been, worth its weight in gold for me. So anyways, again, another unsolicited pitch, but just from a new student perspective, this program has really, been super worth it for me personally. So for whatever that's worth to folks that are watching now, I hope that can help.
Awesome.
Ben, thank you for sharing that. And Lisa, thank you so much for presenting today. We will make sure that we get this out as a recording to anybody who wasn't able to attend today. But Ben, I hope we have you join us for some future webinars and info sessions that we will be cooking up. And Lisa, thank you again. You're the best.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting me. I really appreciate the opportunity to come talk about the course and the book and the model. It's all very exciting. And Ben, thank you so much for your questions. I really appreciate that.
Of course. No, this is fantastic.
And feedback as well.
Of course.
Very supportive. Yeah. Thank you.
Lisa,
Yeah,
we will
awesome.
be storming your doors to get those autographs when the publication comes out. And when are we expecting that again?
So the publisher thinks May 2024.
Congratulations.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you. Thanks. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much both. Have a great rest of your Friday and a great weekend. And then we hope to see you both for some of our future info sessions.
Awesome.
Deal.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.